one of the things that I do as somebody who's starting a farm. So I'm in the starting the farm stage. Now I've partnered with somebody as a mentor who's already in existing farm stage. So he's been running a farm for 10 years. And then I go out and do the research that's necessary in order to find out like the methods and the methods how other people have ran farms for years to go. And one of those places I went for that in-depth knowledge is the permaculture design certification. But as we know that very often we'll learn something, but we're not able to use it consistently because the bridge between learning and experience sometimes is pretty big. Now, I have experience in organic gardening, and I have done other activities in the past, trail restoration, land management, large projects. And so I'm bringing forward a lot of those skills to help my subscribers actually be able to implement the things that we're talking about. So when I talk about how to clear trails for land by hand, and I do a tutorial, this isn't the first time that I've done that, and that's why I'm able to give you something that's actually useful. Now, again, once you join, do chime in the chat to let me know that you're there. Otherwise, I'm going to simply record this program and maybe use it as a podcast. But what I've done with Prosperity Homestead is I've been running a newsletter. I have a number of newsletters, and I've been running a newsletter for many years. This is my publishing company, and you can see the different content that we produce. And I serve a specific audience, an audience of high-income professionals and entrepreneurs, landowners, and individuals who want to have a little bit more control over their career and their life, as well as their outdoor experiences. So these tend to be outdoor-related people. You may or may not fit in that audience, but as people join the newsletter, the key thing that we're talking about is your food security and developing an abundance in your local community. That stability that comes with having a strong community, with having strong skills. And for many, it could be to be debt-free. Having a homestead or a small farm would be debt-free. It could be having the type of lifestyle that comes with that outdoor lifestyle. There's a lot of different factors. If you have a specific factor that's important to you, be sure to just paste that in the comments below, and that way we can kind of capture that. I'm just kind of playing around with the screen a little bit here as we get started. Okay, so the key to food security is having autonomy. It's having personal property. Now, you can live in an apartment in a city and have food security by volunteering at a local farm, by cooperating in other organizations, by being a part of a system that is providing food. Now, even if you're not a part of a system that's providing food, you're part of a system of where everybody's got to eat. So you're getting food from somewhere. It could be a grocery store. It could be a local market. It could be the farmer's market. You have to start with deciding whether or not that food is of value to your family and to your needs and fits your values. So, for example, if all you can find in the grocery store is GMO meats and things like that that don't fit your individual needs, then you have to make adjustments. And that adjustment could be going to the local farmer's market. It could be going to a Whole Food store. It could be going somewhere else. But food security starts with that food. Now, we found out during COVID that food security through a grocery store is somewhat limited. It's limited in the fact that the grocery store can have food go away. It can have supply chain disruption. You could be limited to actually being able to go out to the store. Now, nobody stopped me from going out in my yard and picking fresh vegetables. Nobody stopped me from going out and doing the things that I wanted to do as far as, my food. And I shared that journey with you on the YouTube channel. Now, again, we're syndicated on Rumble, BitChute, and other platforms. So if you're seeing this on a different platform, just understand whatever platform you went to is where I'm sharing information about edible foods and plants and stuff. And it's not my primary job. But I think it's important for you to learn that you don't have to just go to a grocery store. You don't have to depend on the agricultural system that's there, the industrial agricultural system. You can find resources at home. And now that could be homesteading for some people. But when it comes to the rainy day, I like to see folks invest in their education. Now, you could go watch all my videos and you'd learn something, I hope. But more importantly, you'd learn that you can ask questions. So the first question I want you to ask is of your food security. Is your food secure? Is your food clean? Is your food healthy? Would your food be available should there be a natural disaster? Would your food be available if you can't go to the grocery store? Would your food be available if you had a financial problem? Now, these are very important things to think about, but very few people talk about, very few people look at. And so that's, again, what we're doing at Prosperity Homestead. Now, there's some improvements I can do here. So my podcast inventory is horrible. I would love to hear your feedback if I can improve that. I do have a program called Your Farming Empire. And let's see, it's not built out completely. Most of this, Your Farming Empire, is what we've been talking about in the last couple of videos, is how do you get started on your farm. So you bought a piece of land. What are the first things you're going to do with that piece of land? How are you going to start addressing that land? But before you do that, we need a good why. If it's just because of food security, there are other options to secure your food. And we'll talk about those. Number one is you can just go to the grocery store and be smarter about your purchases. You'll notice every grocery store around the outside of the grocery store is your vegetables and your meats and your dairy. And then the inside is your processed foods. Well, you can start by not eating the processed foods, by heading to the outside and being a part of a more healthy lifestyle. Now, I'm not going to say you need to be vegetarian or vegan or carnivore or anything like that. Your balanced diet depends really on your belief system. Really, it depends on your individual health needs. And I'm not in the business of diagnosing your health needs. So your food journey could start with talking with your doctor. It could talking with your family. It could start in those areas, but it has to start somewhere. And the grocery store is likely the most the place that's available. So let's choose natural foods, foods that have a known expiration date because they are organic, enzyme-full foods that are healthy for your system. Let's look at foods that are quality foods. And then, again, grocery stores can provide some of that. Now, I don't have content specific for that. Oh, look at my face there. There's me and me there. I don't have specific notes on here because a lot of times we'll talk about land management. There are other resources where you can learn about what foods, the best quality food and nutrition and stuff. The key is learn that. So we got the grocery store and we've got sections of the grocery store. Now, a lot of grocery stores will have an organic foods section. And it feels like that's probably better. Organic is better, right? Well, maybe not, because the USDA organic laws and regulations, they allow some things that are not necessarily what you want. See, I'm going to have to prep these tabs up in advance because I don't want labels. I want to understand the basics. So if you go out to the USDA's website, they'll tell you about all the wonderful, beautiful things. They'll show you beautiful pictures of farms, but it is still possible for someone to use herbicides, to use GMO seeds, and other types of things within the cycles of the organic label. They're not necessarily going to be growing a GMO seed, but they may be feeding GMO feed to animals. If that's not something that you're interested in, by knowing more about where your food comes from, you're going to get a better chance of having food that fits within your ethics, it fits within your lifestyle, fits within your health and dietary needs. Now, a lot of people have the Abigail thing and they can't eat certain meats. That's fine. You want to know that your fish is not full of mercury, that your fish is sustainably raised. And this is actually a burden that has always been on the consumer. These labels try to save you time and effort, but they're not factual. They're not necessarily accurate. And that's something that we have to be aware of as smart consumers. So let's look at the next option for food, your local farmer's market. Now, a local farmer's market gives you the opportunity to interact with people. It gives you the opportunity to really be a part of the growing system, to really get to know your farmers, but still you can have the same problems. Farmers cut corners. Farmers do things they're not supposed to. But at least it's regional food, so it's a little bit more stable. Regional food is more stable because these farms are not feeding thousands and thousands of people. They're feeding their direct customers. So you can also get food from what's called a consumer-sponsored agriculture, with CSA, or you can get food by other types of cooperatives, which I've been a part of in the past. Uh, these are ways to get food. But what I think is the most health oriented and the most beneficial way is that of growing your own food. Now, again, you don't have to grow your own food and grow everything. That is not always possible, depending on your climate, depending on your skill set. But you could join a community garden, for example, and the community garden can follow certain ethics. You could have your own large garden where you have guests come. You could even go as far as to become a producer in the marketplace. So rather than simply consuming these foods, you could actually produce the quality food that you're looking for and deliver it through the farmer's market or even deliver it through the grocery stores. You'd be surprised how easy it is to market in the grocery stores. So if you're looking for the business of farming, and the management of a farm, that's what we're going to talk about at Prosperity Homestead. We're going to answer your questions about how to get that land up and running, how to get that farm operating, and I'll bring you experts that have actually ran a farm for a period of time. I grew up in an agricultural area and on a farm. We had goats and chickens and rabbits growing up and stuff like that. But again, that was so long ago. I don't have the nuances and details off the top of my head. So as a student, I'd like to bring you along through the newsletter. When it comes to obtaining quality food, I think it's more important to understand the reasons why. Because there will be times where through convenience, through pricing and availability. So for example, in the United States, chicken at the store is significantly less costly than chicken at raising your own chicken. To raise your own chicken could cost $25 to $35 a chicken, completely grown out, which includes the food inputs and includes the space and all that stuff. Where you can, for $5, can buy a fully cooked chicken ready to eat. Now, what's in that fully cooked chicken and how do they make it so cheap? Well, they made it cheap because the chicken doesn't have a very good life. There's a lot of chickens squashed into a small space. The chickens are grown very rapidly. The chickens are given hormones and other things to make them grow quickly or to keep them healthy in such a stressful environment. The chicken itself is subsidized by the U.S. Department of Agriculture and other factors. And so you might want to ask yourself the question, if we are what we eat and we are a factor of the environment in which we live, is that $5 chicken actually healthy? See, that's food security, okay? The food we put into our bodies influences our health, influences our mental state. And so, yeah, the $5 chicken may fit your budget today, but is that something you want to keep doing into the future, especially when you can understand the skills and the stacking of function that comes with raising that chicken? It is possible for you to have a chicken that costs you $35 to raise, but you got hundreds of dollars of labor out of the chicken while the chicken is doing chicken things. So we know chickens like to scratch. Chickens like to break down organic material and sort through organic material. And so if you do something like Jeff Lawton's Chicken Tractor, where you are bringing in your organic waste, you're bringing in yard waste materials, and the chickens are tearing down those materials and turning them into compost, well, maybe you could get $50 of labor out of the chickens over its lifespan while helping the chicken do what chickens like to do. You may even be able to lower the cost of feed and then be in a position where you're now at advancing the economic side to produce that food security. Ultimately, though, when you are looking at that, that isn't the only option. So you can do a victory garden style where you have a chicken coop in the middle and then a garden on either side. And the work you get from the chickens is they're processing the gardens between seasons. They could be helping you with ticks and other things there. But again, until you understand where the food is coming from, which very often is gaining that experience with a local farm, building up those homesteading skills, you may not understand the difference between a $5 chicken and a $35 chicken. And then as a consumer, you may not want to pay for a $35 chicken. Now, with inflation the way it is, that $5 chicken may one day be a $35 chicken. But what we're looking at here is, what are you getting for the food? Okay, are you buying eggs from a local farmer that you know raised those chickens in an ethical way? Those chickens got to be chickens. They got to live in a healthy environment. And those eggs now have less cholesterol in them. Or they have other, and I'm going to be careful not to make any health claims. I'm encouraging you to go look for yourself. But when you crack open a farm-raised egg and you put that on a plate, and you see how the farm raised egg, that yolk stands up nice and firm, and there's no weird coloration in it. Unfortunately, a lot of commercial eggs, you crack them open and the whites of the egg just run all over the frying pan, and the yolks are not that golden orange color, but instead they're kind of like this weird yellowish, because again, the chicken is in a state of stress, in a state of just being just kind of stressed out, and it's going to produce a result. Like we said earlier, the food you intake impacts your thinking, it impacts your gut biome, it impacts your health, and that $5 chicken may not be worth the $5. So when we're talking about food security, when we're talking about abundance, there is no shortage of food available in the marketplace today. Now, you guys remember during COVID, the grocery store shelves were empty. I don't know if I'm going to play around with the browser or anything and try to show you some of the pictures, but I have pictures of grocery store shelves that were empty. Now, when we talk about pantry management and how you manage your household, and again, we're going over kind of rainy day activities. Educate yourself, kind of understand why you're buying food the way you buy it today, and if there's a better way, look into that better way. But the pantry management, when you have a rainy day out, it's perfect to go through your pantry and kind of look at the labels. You're always going to have, from a sustainability standpoint, that experience is going to show you need to have a little bit extra food on hand. You're going to need to have dry goods on hand. Because while we have the fantasy that we'll grow all the food we need in 2 acres and we'll be able to feed ourselves with all the meats and the vegetables, we don't understand the seasonality until we get out and maybe work with a local farmer, or volunteer at a local community garden, or take a class with somebody who's going to show you those homesteading skills with the reality of animals need feed. You need to have feed on hand. Animals need a certain amount of grazing, so 2 acres may not do it. These are characteristics that we build up on those rainy days by applying the education. So go through your dry goods, find out what's in the products, and if you can't read that label and not understand it, then you're going to be in a situation where maybe you don't want to ingest that and put it into your body. So what are the options there? Well, we still may have, and I went through the different locations that you can get food in the marketplace. You may still have to go to that grocery store. Now, I've made some recent changes to find my dry goods. I like to go to global markets. I like to go to locally owned meat markets or locally owned providers. But it is not a common, let me just say that when you start going local, you're not going to find the variety that you would at a large grocery store. So when you, I'm going to have to go find this really quick. I want you to look at this right here. This is at a local market. That is a 1-gallon container of Duke's mayonnaise. Okay. Now that's at a local market here, Perlman's Meat Market, and they have wonderful cuts of meat. They have a lot of frozen fishes and stuff like that. They have a lot of stapled goods. But what you will find when you start switching to buy local is that you may have to go to different farms. You may have to go to different locations to find the goods that you're looking for. And then the pantry management kicks up. So on your rainy days, you're going to run through that pantry. I'll show you a meal I did a couple days ago just to give you something to look at. But when you go through that pantry, you're going to find that fresh vegetables, fresh meats, they don't have the shelf life because they don't have the preservatives in them. So they're better for your body, but they're not necessarily going to last very long. So you will need to have the dried goods to supplement. What we're looking at right here came from a local farm. There's spinach in here. The pork chop came from Perlman's, and this is up top here is a scallions. So I got from the Sustainable Homestead Institute, where I do a lot of volunteer work, and like I said earlier, I'm taking on a mentor. I'm taking on the education. I'm demonstrating to you that this is readily available information if you're willing to make the effort. But at the Sustainable Homestead Institute, I was doing a little work over there, and I got some spinach and I got a little bit of greens, and I'm learning how those systems function. We have actually done a number of demos at that location and a number of walkthroughs with the types of things that are going on over there. This is my property here. But the point I'm making is that when we apply the education, we have to understand, okay, we're going to harvest the food and then we're going to store it somewhere. So your regular pantry is going to be great for dry goods. We're going to go through our dry goods and make sure we have things that have good shelf life but don't have a lot of preservatives. So your pastas, your rice, your beans, all of that, if it's properly stored, can last quite a long time in your pantry. And that's going to give you the food security of being able to, if you can't go to the market, you'll be able to at least have something decent to eat, or at least something decent to supplement. Distracted myself with pictures. This is a video coming out where I did some lacto fermentation, and I'll put that video out here shortly. But the food, I like to look at pictures of food, but the food preparation needs certain components. And if those components are not on hand, you can't prepare the food. Now, again, a lot of people that have the grocery store mindset, that have the industrial farm mindset, is that someone has to give them the food. But when you start cutting out your pre-prepared foods like your frozen dinners and your instant meals and stuff like that, and start learning how to do the basics of cooking, you're going to have a pantry ready to go. Your pantry will hold some dry goods, but you may also have to have cold storage or a means of storing food by refrigeration. So again, this is the spinach again, and this is eggs from that farm I mentioned, Sustainable Homestead Institute, which I'll probably put a link in the description here. Probably should get their website while I'm jumping around here. And I'll just put that in the chat so you can see that. But again, this is a learning organization that I'm learning from too. So I come to you as a podcaster, I come to you as a publisher. The website speaks about the things that I have experienced: project management, risk management, setting up the systems for doing this. But I still go out and invest in the education and learning because I want quality food. This bacon is local, regional bacon that came from the local market. This is spinach, and by the way, that's way too much spinach to eat in one sitting. But underneath that is a bunch of rice. I had to get the rice from a regular grocery store, but I bought it in a 25-pound bag so that I had rice available when I needed. And of course, these eggs came from the place we've said before. But this is a quality meal. Now, notice I'm not eating a pound of bacon. I've got more veg than I've got eggs. I'm not telling you how to eat, but even eating quality and good food, you can eat too much or too little. We need to work that out. But again, your pantry, your need for refrigeration, maybe your need for freezing. Now, the reason I mentioned that that's too much spinach is because I'm harvesting spinach late in the season, and it was just a massive volume of spinach. And spinach is not going to have a very long shelf life. So I ended up putting a moist paper towel around the spinach. I can't manufacture paper towels here. I could have put a moist towel around it, maybe, or a flour sack, but it has to go into the refrigerator. Otherwise, it's going to start to yellow out. So we had spinach and eggs this morning. Actually, my breakfast looked kind of like this morning with no rice, though. And it had spinach that was probably a week in the refrigerator. And so some of it was yellowed. So what do I do with that waste? So the third thing we're going to talk about is your waste. So the yellowed leaves actually ended up going into the compost to be processed. So now that's an area that I have expertise in, the composting in. Now this circles back around to the chickens. Let's say you have chickens and you have organic waste from your food. Maybe you've had food that's gone bad. Now you can go and feed it to the chickens, and now you can turn what was waste into meat, into eggs, into work around the farm. So we're looking at our organic waste streams primarily in order to support our food system. Now, what would be really cool is if I had a whiteboard. And again, I'm doing this as a test. If you'd like to see more of these live videos, just let me know in the chat. Let me know in the comments later. But I'm just going to look for a quick whiteboard. Whiteboard. If I don't see it right away, I'll just go without it. The key is we want a circular economy starting at our home. So we went to the grocery store, we went to the farmer's market, we volunteered time at a local farm, and they gave you a basket, like a farm share or a CSA type share. You've now got that in your home. Are we properly storing it? Are we having enough available at any given time? These are important factors, okay? But now we're starting to produce some organic waste on our home or on our property, what do we do with that organic waste? Well, the reason this little session is going to be about this is let me just get this real quick here. We're going to use green because we're all environmentally friendly. We have a circular system. Oh my gosh, that looks horrible. It is going to be waste. We're just going to do W for waste. Production, because I don't want you to be a consumer. I don't want you to be dependent on someone else. And now we have supply, because again, even if you're producing your own food, I will have to find a better way of doing this. Holy smoke, folks. Basically, if you go into the grocery store and buying products and services and you're mindful of the packaging, I showed you in a video in the past of the horrific mess I had when I was recycling. I solved that problem by simply not pulling things into my home that had to be recycled. So when I go buy at the Perlman's Meat Market, the meat is wrapped in paper, and I can just put the paper in the compost. Oh, and Scott, by the way, we do have an interview that's coming out soon. I have to finish the editing on that, which I probably should be doing instead of this video. But we did interview a gentleman at the Sustainable Homestead Institute that had some really revealing information about that survival ethic. Because what I'm talking about here with your supply creating waste that can be turned into production, which then feeds your supply, you will be in a situation where you're actually building sustainability and a survival mindset where if something bad happens, like supply chain issue, you will be able to just respond to it rather than react. Because I started out part of this video talking about if we have a supply chain disruption such as the COVID issue. So let's say, for example, somebody comes in and they X out this supply right here because you can't go to the grocery store, because the fuel prices are too high, because there's a natural disaster and the road is blocked. Well, could you have that supply in your own home? Well, yes, through your household management, through your pantry management, you could have that supply in your home for a temporary period of time. Yet through your production over here, you could have these two things could work with each other. It's like a three-legged stool. A three-legged stool is more secure with three legs, but if you lost a leg, you could hobble there a little bit. But remember, one is none, two is one. So we would have to find some way to find the supply here. So I've been giving you examples of how I volunteer on a local farm. Now, it just happens to be a nonprofit. I'm very fortunate to have a nonprofit educational center in my community that is giving back so much in the community as far as farm demonstrations, educational opportunities. I was out there yesterday or the day before yesterday doing a little bit of cleanup. I think I did a video of it for you guys, but they were starting a foundation for a natural building. So, you could even eliminate your need for someone to build a house for you if you're able to buy your own home. So I'm a little excited about that interview that we'll finish off and get edited for you. But the point I'm making that's very important for you to take home is that if you're only looking at a grocery store and that industrial farming system for your food, you will not have the food security. If you do find local markets and things, but then bring that food home and you're unable to consume it in a time frame that's reasonable, and now you've produced waste, or the packaging and the other materials that you use to get that food to your home has additional residual waste, then how do we manage that waste? How do we store things so that we have less waste? Well, again, that feeds the production. And that could be composting. I do have a few videos one of the things that we're working on, and if there's a volunteer out there that wants to help, we're working on getting all of our podcasts. Like I said, there's hundreds of podcast videos about composting, like this one, for example, where we're talking about farm scale waste and keeping critters out of your waste. Because any one of these cycles, okay, let's say you're producing a garden. Now you've got waste. Now we have our circular economy going this way. I hate to do this to you guys, but I'm going to make this a little confusing. The waste can come both ways. So you can actually, like I did with the video where we flail mowed the tall grass that's around new garden areas, we created mulch that can now mulch the food. So just let's make this simple, and I'll wrap up with this. when you understand the systems of your food security, you're able to reinforce those systems in ways that gives you more of what you desire and less of what you don't. But if we simply have a consumer mindset and we're like $5 chicken versus $35 chicken, and you're not seeing what's happening with that $35 chicken, it's living in a more healthy environment. It was humanely processed, meaning it only had one bad day in its life. It was working there, so the muscle tone of that chicken meat is completely different. Instead of a flabby, soft chicken that doesn't have that rich taste to it, you're instead getting a highly nutritious chicken with really good amino acids in its bones and stuff. Now, again, I'm not making any health claims. You need to research this yourself. A chicken that lived a chicken's life, a pig that lived a pig's life, a goat that lived a goat's life, a cow that ate grass versus ate grains is a different animal. And so if we're looking for our supply and one supply element was lost, and we've now built up these other supply elements, and so you've got supply here, supply one, supply two, we can keep this cycle going. When we understand that farmer A is different than farmer B, we can make better choices in our market. Now, Scott just made a comment here. The cost of a sustainable lifestyle will cost you everything, but the gain is substantial. Absolutely right. Because when you take the time to investigate where your food is coming from, you'll notice that you have more than one option, more than just the grocery store. In this case, I mentioned Perlman's Meat. I mentioned the Sustainable Homestead Institute. Now, there's a cost to these things. You don't just get the food because it's there. You do have to invest. You may have to spend, $15 or $30 or even $35 for a farm raised chicken. And what you'll notice is the chicken's a little bit larger. The chicken's got better meat. The density of the meat's better. The taste is different. You may have, that might be okay. But there is a point where sustainability, having that lifestyle, makes all the difference because of how you're managing your waste. You're now creating compost for your garden. And the production of your garden means a few less trips to the grocery. And now your garden, your production out here, creates another supply. See? And now even the waste from the garden, which could be organic material, biomass, can go back into your waste streams, which feeds your system. So now what happens, and this is kind of the permaculture ethic, is that your waste, remember, the definition of waste is something you cannot use. So if your waste is now functioning in a system, which is your homestead or your small farm, that waste now becomes value one and value two. And so now your waste becomes feed for your chickens. And instead of buying you still get a $35 chicken, but now that chicken is worked. That chicken, even the waste of the chicken and the rabbits, and we've showed you videos on that, becomes food for your system, which reinforces your system. So the gain is substantial. Sometimes the gain is hard to measure, and I like to teach people how to measure it because that reinforces the behavior. If you are growing a garden and it's a chore, and you don't see that benefit of higher nutritional value foods, food that has longer shelf life, food that's like right outside your door. Like I said, during COVID, nobody could stop me from walking from my front door to a garden and harvesting the in-season vegetables that were available. But I had to understand that I wasn't going to walk outside and get a banana. I'm in a temperate climate. I'm in zone 7. Bananas are not going to be growing outside. But that's okay because I had the recipes, I had the supply, I had things in the pantry that I could grow. And now we're producing the sustainability. We're now producing what I call the prosperity. But again, you have to be willing to educate yourself. Now, I'm going to make some recommendations on some homesteading skills courses. In some previous videos that I haven't published yet, I made recommendations about some natural building courses. And we're doing, of course, the Container Barn, so I'll get you details about that. The Container Barn is really a demonstration on how you can get started incrementally into a farm environment or into a production environment. Because as you guys know, that at my local site, my arch nemesis is stopping me from having gardens at my local site, but that's okay. Because again, I understand these 3 steps, this cycle of growth. Now, are there additional steps? Yes, there are. If you ask your questions in the comments below, if you give me some feedback by visiting, this is what I'm talking about when I say go to www.prosperityhomestead.org and then go to the comments, because when you fill out this form, I'll answer those questions. But I hope I've given you something to think about. The big problems that we're facing right now is that the supply chain is not guaranteed, both from a financial perspective of our costs increasing due to inflation, but also the potential for things to get shut down or healthy food just not being available. Even though we've had times where the grocery store shelves here in America have been empty, we also have times where there's a lot of food on the shelf, but it's very poor quality. So my suggestion is this system, which I'll try to get better at the whiteboards, is a system of understanding that you have your supply, you have your storage and waste, and then we have our production, and then ultimately we can convert our waste into additional value. We can convert our production into additional supply, but it does take an investment in knowledge. Again, I've invested in the permaculture design certification. I've invested with going out to mentors, which is a lot of effort on my part to go out to the mentors, but I really believe I'm getting more from the mentoring relationship than I could get otherwise. We've talked about how a lot of folks don't understand these concepts. We've talked about the real work that's involved in growing, the seasonal aspects of growing, where to invest your money if you're going to start a small farm or a homestead. Because a lot of things that we see on these videos, and I got nothing against a lot of these homesteading videos, but I'm not about entertainment. I'm about saving you from the really true reality of, not understanding your food. Now you're eating bad food. I've had health issues associated with bad choices of food. Anyway, let me just wrap this up. I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. If you visit me at www.prosperityhomestead.org, we have a newsletter and then a place to ask questions. I hope I've shared some valuable aspects here as far as understanding your supply chain, securing your supply chain, ultimately leveraging the waste in the systems that you have today to get to gap if a supply chain should leave. And then finally, start moving towards a production society, being part of a production society, being part of community. We're here to help you, as we say in the About page, help you basically live a more simple and sustainable lifestyle within the implementation of ecological and regenerative practices. If you have any questions or anything, I'm done with the podcast. I'm going to stop streaming. Thanks for being here. I'm not sure how many people even came on because now that's distracting. But anyway, if you want more of these, let me know. Talk to you later. Bye.